Is it possible to live a Christian life in the context of a non-Christian culture? Or do Christians need to withdraw into Christian enclaves and disassociate themselves from the non-Christian world? Paul is clear that Christians do and can live in the world, even a non-Christian world, and should not withdraw from it. But neither should they simply live like everyone else. In today's reading from the epistle selection from the Daily Lectionary, from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, Paul continues to draw a contrast between life in the Gentile world and life in the Christian community. But nowhere does he even hint that believers should withdraw from the world. That would be totally opposite of what their calling is. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. In the readings from Ephesians 4, we saw Paul encouraging the Christian community to maintain their sense of unity even with the real differences that existed between them, even with the real diversity that existed within their ranks. He did this to help them understand that part of their witness as Christians within the Gentile world of Ephesus was to demonstrate that petty differences need not lead to bitterness, anger, wrath, or retribution against adversaries. Now in chapter 5, we see Paul continue to press this line of thinking. He begins, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and live in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." This is as close to a direct command as well as a general principle as Paul gets. Live in love as Christ loved us. But the devil, as they say, is in the details. Love is a notoriously easy term to fill with whatever content suits our fancy, with whatever meanings fit our biases. The question is, what does love look like in concrete circumstances? And for Paul, it seems to mean, among other things, a kind of faithfulness in a variety of settings. The most obvious of these circumstances, of course, revolves around sexual relations. He writes, "But fornication and impurity of any kind, or greed, must not be even mentioned among you, as is proper among saints. Entirely out of place is obscene, silly, and vulgar talk. But instead, let there be thanksgiving. Be sure of this, that no fornicator or impure person, or one who is greedy, that is, an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God." Fornication and impurity we kind of get. I suspect Paul is talking in the first place about serial relationships without commitments. I don't know exactly what life was like in the Gentile world or what passed for common norms and practices, but I think we can infer from Paul that there was an ethic, perhaps akin to what exists in our own day and time, in which casual sexual relationships were the norm and pretty commonly accepted. But it's not just about casual relationships. Notice that he includes greed here. What do greed and casual sex have to do with each other? Well, both are attempts to satisfy our most self-centered impulses. The problem in these cases is their tendency to erode the bonds of community. They tend to sow anger and hard feeling. They tend to place people at odds with one another. And if the purpose of the Christian community, as Paul intimated earlier, is to bear witness to the blessing of living within the household of God and what that household is like, then avoiding those things which erode the foundations of community are things to steer clear of. That doesn't mean withdrawal from the culture. It means to live a distinctive life within culture, a life marked by fidelity in every aspect of life. It means living as people who value others so highly that to do damage to relationships within the community is simply unthinkable. Remember, God's stated purpose, says Paul, from the very beginning, first through Abraham and his offspring, and now including in the church, is to bring blessing to all the world. And that blessing begins by demonstrating a distinctive way of living, one in which doing harm to the fabric of the community becomes unimaginable. We could probably stand to take a lesson from Paul. Tomorrow, one of the passages from Paul that has caused maybe more debate in the church than perhaps any other. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.